Number 2. Hello, my name is Jennifer, but I go by Jenny, and I'm from California. This story I'm going to tell you comes directly from my mom and dad, as well as other members of my family and family friends. What I'm about to tell you is a true story. This took place back in early 1999 or early 2000. Since my birthday is in November, I just turned 12. I'm 24 now. This story was told to me from my mom and dad upon arriving home one day. My dad Henry's brother Eddie is married to his wife Esperanza. Esperanza's younger brother Victor was murdered after his night shift in the front of a store he worked at. Victor was shot to death. This tragedy struck because all the gang activity in my area and due to the Mexican cultures in the Monterey County area. Victor was rushed to the hospital that was only a short 3-minute drive away from where his girlfriend usually picked him up after all of his night shifts. She witnessed his death firsthand. Funeral arrangements were made and I was sad, but I was younger at the time and Victor was 17, so there was a 5-year age gap. He would always ride his dirt bike at my grandma's house because, coincidentally, there was so much dirt. He would always smile and wave at everyone. He was just so full of life. So when the news broke out, it was like a dream from the worst nightmare you could ever imagine. My parents had asked me and my little sister to go to the viewing of his body to comfort my uncle and his wife Esperanza. The memorial service took place at a Catholic church in the beach town of Moss Landing, California. Father Rudy was a priest hosting the viewing of the body and the man reading the prayers. It all started at 8 p.m. and everything ended around 10 p.m. My parents arrived home very out of place and shocked. My parents are both light-skinned, but their color was completely gone at this point. I asked my parents what was wrong, and they looked at one another, and my mom started explaining what had taken place at the church. Father Rudy stood at the podium and made a cross sign with his left hand over his face, and proceeded to speak of holy words in Spanish and English. While doing so, Rudy started to sweat over his gown, and it was so soaked he actually paused and changed into a new one. Here's the absolutely horrifying stuff. All of a sudden, Rudy's language transformed, and he started speaking in tongues. He stopped as if to try to speak regularly, and his voice sounded evil and very deep, and he had sort of a raspy tone that sent everyone into shock and horror. His eyes started to roll to the back of his head, and from above Rudy, there was a flash of light that appeared something like a lightning strike. He then fell backwards and people rushed to his aid. At that moment his body was shaking and he was screaming Latin words, which my mom recognized because she took classes, and he was speaking of the devil. His face was moving not humanly, and people who rushed to help ran off immediately after seeing him. It was so scary. The ambulance was called. Inside the church where the candles are kept, they all went out by themselves at that very moment in time. So, possessed priest my parents don't want to meet, let's never meet again. Number 1. This story happened a year ago. I was living with my then boyfriend, now fiancé. Anyways, we lived in a townhouse in the suburbs. Pretty safe area. There had been some robberies a couple blocks away, but they weren't common, and I felt pretty safe walking home alone at night. So one weekend my boyfriend's brother Marshall and his girlfriend Amy and her brother Curtis were visiting. We were all just gonna chill, have a couple drinks, play video games, and relax. My boyfriend had his LSATs, and after months of hard studying, he wanted to just relax before the big exam. Unfortunately, I ended up getting very sick. It was the worst sort of flu I'd ever had. Extremely high fever, 1 degree higher, and I would have had to go to the hospital. I had nausea, horrible headache, body aches, and all that good stuff. Of course, I didn't want to stop my friends from having a good time, so they came over anyways, and I just stayed in my room. They went out to eat before they came over, so I was in bed alone watching TV. I felt like I was dying. I slept on and off. At 4 p.m. I heard the door open. I figured they were back, but when I called out for my boyfriend, no one came. Even if he was there, he probably wouldn't have heard me. But I knew he'd come check on me as soon as he came back. So I assumed I just heard something fall or the neighbors were making noises. So I dismissed it and went back to sleep. I remember I was sleeping on my back, and in deep sleep I groggily opened my eyes, and I thought I saw a figure move across my room. I was so heavily medicated and so sick, I didn't even fully understand what had happened and what that meant. Like I saw the figure, but it didn't connect in my brain that I may have seen someone, and since it was pretty dark in the room, I think part of me just thought it was the TV. Finally, at around 7 p.m., everyone came back. They were loud. Amy, my boyfriend's brother's girlfriend, was very tipsy, and she's very fun when drunk, so there was lots of laughter. My boyfriend came in to check on me. He brought me soup. He sat and talked about his day as I ate it. I asked him to look in the basket under the bed to get the new bottle of aspirin. We had a full-size bed. I had one small basket under the bed where I kept extra pill bottles, toothbrushes, shaving cream, and stuff like that. I didn't know it right away, but thank God he looked under the bed. He put his head up and handed me the aspirin, but his facial expression had changed. Like he lost all the color from his face. I didn't think much of it and said, "Thank you. Come on, I'm gonna take you to the bathroom." He never stutters. I was kind of out of it, but I remember picking up on it. I told him no, I really don't have to pee, and I didn't feel like getting up. He said, "No, let's go. I don't want to have to climb back up the stairs just because you need to pee in 10 minutes. I remember feeling pretty hurt by his words, but knew he was right, since I just had soup and half a bottle of water. He walked me downstairs, and I couldn't understand why we didn't just go to the bathroom upstairs. I think I was so sick I just felt too exhausted to question. He sat me down on the couch. "What's going on?" I practically whispered this. I was told, although in my head it sounded loud. He took out his phone, and his hand was shaking. I asked what was wrong, and I will never forget how my heart sunk, and I felt like I couldn't breathe when he whispered, "There was someone under the bed." Amy laughed, so I laughed thinking it was a prank, but it felt serious. My boyfriend's brother suggested we get out of the house, so we did. As we were leaving, we heard a thud upstairs. We quickly left and drove away, then called the police. The police came and searched the house, but they didn't find anyone. He must have known we suspected he was there, and then he left. My boyfriend couldn't give me any description, only that he saw sneakers. But it was so dark he really couldn't see. Scariest thing that still leaves me on edge is the fact that the police found a knife under the bed. It was a small steak knife, but very dull and rusty. There weren't any killings in the area, so my friends assumed he just wanted a place to sleep. I'm not really sure how we got into our place, but I do have some theories. I'm really proud of him, how he handled everything. He's a calm and collected person, but I always assumed he wouldn't be that way in a crisis. I just hope I never see this person again, ever.